O Lord, what are we that you should regard us? We are like a breath, our days are like a passing shadow, they are like a dream. Like grass which is renewed in the morning it flourishes, in the evening it fades and withers. The years of our life are few, their pride is but toil, they are soon gone and we fly away. So teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom, guard the innocent and behold the upright, for there is posterity for a person of peace. Surely God will redeem my soul. The Lord redeems the souls of his servants. None of those who take refuge in God will be condemned. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. It's with great sadness that we are all gathered here today to say farewell to Fay Swartz, born October 29, 1931 in Winnipeg. The Talmud relates a question that Alexander the Great asked of all the rabbis. And one of those questions was, what should a person do in order to prepare for their death? And the rabbis answered, they should live. Death is inevitable, and our tradition teaches us to cherish life. Our tradition teaches us not to be afraid of death, but to be afraid of a life without meaning. As the rabbi said, greater is 1 hour of good deeds and mitzvot in this world than all of life in the world to come. Live life to its fullest. That is the Jewish way. Fay was a very strong woman. She believed in good people. As our rabbi said, we should always give the benefit of the doubt, and Fay tried to give people the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, She was also a very strong individual, very resolved. You had one chance with her to do good, and the second strike, you were out. Her son Carrie told me a story that just a while ago she received a string of spam calls, 50 to be exact. And when she called her son to tell her, he said, "Why don't you just ignore them?" And her response was very precious. She said, "What if one of them is really important?" That's who she was. Fay was also involved in women's organizations and in philanthropy. She was an active member of Hadassah Women, and she and her late husband gave to many causes, especially to Israel. But they also gave to general causes, and their rule was very, very simple. If it's a worthy cause and it helps others, then give. Fay was the perfect Jewish mother. She cared for her parents to the end. She cared for her mother-in-law for 17 years as her mother-in-law struggled with Alzheimer's. She loved her grandchildren very, very dearly. Tien nishmata tzrura bitzror hachayim. May her soul be bound in the eternal bond of life, and let us say Amen. I'd like to call on Carrie for a eulogy.
Thank you, Rabbi. I just wanted to give you, before I do the prepared remarks, I just sort of a personal note. I think everybody who knew Fay was fiscally sophisticated, and on the evening, my mother knew the stock markets. She was fiscally quite up on what was going on. So the night that we arrived, got to do some cleanup, and she was also very frugal because they never owned a scratch pad. When my father chose to close the family business, Northern Sales, he took every piece of stationery home and used the back of it. So there were just reams of paper, and that night she had written down the closes for all the markets, and she had a US dollar euro conversion rate just in the middle of the paper. And then she passed away that night. So just a surprise. In terms of what I've written, I realized I'd given the rabbi most of my good stuff. But I'm going to try to make this chesed like a movie. The content comes first, and then the credits usually come at the end. And I've decided to reverse the process so that the credits are clear and comprehensible at the beginning, and they're free from possible teary tones. In no particular order, I'd like to thank the people on her care team, Dr. Robert Craker, her cardiologist, Dr. Lawrence Comic, her respirologist, and all the many specialists she encountered during the later stages of her life. I'd like to thank Marina Boroditsky, the women who performed my mother's tahara, the Shomrim and the entire Chesed Shalemis who ensured Kavod Hamed until now. Finally, and most noteworthy, is my cousin Kenny Roseman. After I moved to the coast and my father passed, he took care of me. He watched over and he took care of my mother's daily needs. If there was something to be repaired or groceries that she needed, he would do as much as possible to make sure that it was done either himself or calling in the experts. I will always be grateful for your tireless efforts, and you really did ensure her safety and her well-being on a day-to-day basis. Now about my mother. Those that are familiar with her family know she died far too early. Her father passed away at 100. Her mother passed away at 99. Recently, Kenny's mother passed away at 96. So that she dies when she's 91. This is a premature gathering. Jewish law mandates that this chesed acknowledge and commend her for her commendable qualities and accomplishments. It's not necessary to pick and choose from sporadic circumstances to weave a fabricated life story. I don't need to tell you every positive quality she had. All of you who came today are familiar with who Fay was and how she was with you and how she was in her own way. And despite her appearances, she was a straightforward, reliable, and ardent defender of her family and friends. In my youth, some of the things you may not have known is that when in my youth she was deeply involved in a number of Jewish causes, Hadassah, Ort, and for many years she also volunteered for the CNIB to translate books into Braille at our dining room table. She also used to be part of the Academy Bowling Lane's Wednesday afternoon Women's League. One year she was actually champion, but I don't know where the trophy went, she said. It was probably rotated among team members, but never made it to our house. When I was 15.99999 years old, a day later I could get a full driver's license. And she drove an immaculate Pontiac Parisienne 2+2 with a 354 barrel, bucket seats. The whole Megillah was loaded, showroom condition. But she sold it before I turned 16. So she sold it to one of my schoolmates, and a day or two later he had raised the rear end, put mag wheels on it, stuck fire chicken decals all over the side, and even made a hood scoop. I even light a 24-hour candle for that car. Thanks, Fay. This left me with Clifford's car to drive, which was a 1974 gold-colored Dodge Monaco station wagon with fake wood panels and an AM radio. I was embarrassed as hell to be driving that thing until we realized how many people could hold it. And Fay received the call from the Winnipeg police one Saturday night regarding the 11 or more drunken BBYOers barreling through Garden City on icy streets in the middle of the winter. Her only comment to me was, "I am not impressed." In my last car story, she let me borrow her new Pontiac Parisienne when I realized, when I was about 18, we went to a social at the River Heights Community Center. A few hours later, I realized I had misplaced the keys. Since we lived just 3 blocks away, I phoned and she was more than willing to come down with a new spare set of keys around 10 p.m. She went home. I stayed. I had her car. The party ended at midnight, so I took each of my friends home and I had the requisite few beers with each of them. When I walked in the front door, somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning, Fay was at the top of the stairs in a bathrobe and said only, "Where the hell have you been?" Once, and the rabbi has covered how she cared for family. Perhaps the only story I can offer is one day CO, my father's father, reported that he wasn't feeling well. Nothing terribly specific, he just didn't feel well. So, about 10 minutes later, Clifford called Fay and said that she was headed to Rochester with CO just after lunch that day. Upon arrival, Fay discovered that CO had not packed any toiletries or clothes. So while CO kibitzed with the doctors and friends at the Mayo Clinic, she scoured Rochester for appropriate replacements. She was unable to find clothes that fit, and if you knew how natty a dresser he looked, he was, I never saw those clothes again. We were sometimes at odds about how things were set up in her life. Sometimes we'd reach out and offer sensible suggestions for today's world, helping her save some money, make less effort to accomplish something, and each suggestion was rejected because it would make her life easier, but because she'd been doing things the same way for such a long time. Why must I change, she would say. I must congratulate my wife Anna Lee for finally convincing her to switch from DSL to fiber internet services. Although we have the most bare bones package I can ever see that you can find. It was only until this moment that I have not been treating her with the level of kavod she's entitled to. Mom, you taught me so many things. And this is the last time I can say thank you. Thank you for taking Harvey Pollack's call about 62 years ago.
In Jewish tradition, the greatest act of kindness that we can do is called chesed shel emet. It's a kindness which is truthful, and it's also just. It's a kindness that we can do for another individual that we get nothing in return. It's purely an act of kindness. And the very last act of kindness that we can all do for Fay today is to fill her grave. So I'm going to ask everybody, there are shovels here, and ask everybody to step forward. We should at least cover the casket over here. The tradition is that you shovel and then put the shovel down. Don't hand it directly to the next person, but put it down. And in this way, everybody will have the opportunity to participate in this last mitzvah that we can do. So I ask everybody to come forward.
Good.
Try to get at least cover the, maybe tell me, it doesn't look like we have lots of hands here.
No, I would say that. What's that? The top of the casket is covered. I mean, I know we can do it way out there. That's fine. Right now it's very diversified. All this is like an ascending path. But it's a question of what you ship. I paid for it, so you ship it to Winnipeg, you ship it to Lakewood. Faithful sense. Yeah, so 2 hours. The guy, we called him thief, and all sorts of things. He called me, but I was so happy.
I'll stay afterwards to make sure they cover it.
We'll just do Kemalei Rachamim.
El malei rachamim, shochen b'amromim, hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, b'malot kedoshim uteorim kezohar harakia mazhirim, et nishmat Fay bat Zlota ve'Avraham shalcha le'olama. Bavush anu mitpalim bad azkarat nishmata began Eden tehe menuchata lachen bal harachamim yastira besetek knafav lolamim bitzror achayim et nishmata Adonai hu nachalata vetanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar amen. God full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest and peace beneath the sheltering wings of your divine presence to the soul of Fay bat Zlota and Avraham, who has gone to her eternal resting place. We will give charity and offer prayers in memory of her soul. May her soul be in paradise, Master of mercy. Protect her forever. Bring her under the shelter of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the eternal bond of life. May the Lord be her possession. May she rest peacefully. And let us say, Amen. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echzar, binodeh sheyarbitzeini al mei menuchot yenahaleini, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'magilei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begeit al mavet, lo irara ki ata imadi, shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorerai, Dishanta b'Hashem roshi kosi revaya ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me to water in places of repose. He renews my life. He guides me in the right paths as befits His name. Though I walk through the valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm, for You are with me. Your rod and Your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table for me in full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My drink is abundant. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long years. We now have the mourner's Kaddish.
Yiskadal v'yiskad Shmei Rabah. V'yamad yivrachu say v'yamlichlechu say v'chai chona v'yachona chayot beis Yisrael hagalav yizman kari v'yivru amen. Yehesh Rabah mevarach le'olam omeil maya yishtabach v'yistabach v'yitbabar v'yitmarom v'yisnaseh v'yitchabar v'yitchalav v'tis halal Shmei Kadisha Baruchu Lal min kol no I don't sorry Le'ela Mikol Bishchata Damag Mag Imru Amen Yehesh Lama Rabah Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Yel Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen Oseh Shalom V'imramah Yoseh Shalom Yel Kol Yisrael Amen.
I want to thank everybody for coming today. We have taken care of burial of Fay. That was our concern up to now, and now our attention turns to the mourners. So I'd like to ask that we make two parallel lines facing each other that the mourners can walk through. So we have one line here, and maybe we'll just get another one just across here. We'll just ask everybody to come forward. The mourners will walk through, and we will comfort them, we will console them with the traditional verse. May the Almighty comfort you with all mourners.